Hello, I'm Futurist Thomas Frey. I've been studying our evolving relationship with artificial intelligence for over 20 years. I'd like to begin with a story. In December of 1947, three researchers at Bell Labs in New Jersey, William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Brattain, produced the first working transistor, which is considered to be one of the most important inventions in all history. These three gentlemen went on to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1956. Even though all three of them were credited with inventing the transistor, William Shockley felt it was primarily his invention, and as a result, the three of them didn't really get along. In 1955, a year before they received the Nobel Prize, William Shockley decided to move to San Francisco Bay Area and set up a manufacturing plant for transistors under the name of Shockley Semiconductor Laboratories. Shockley was also a visiting professor at Stanford University, and he used that connection to recruit some of the top PhD candidates with the goal of producing next-generation semiconductor devices. As it turned out, William Shockley was a terrible manager, and in 1957, 8 of his top researchers decided to leave and start their own company, a company they named Fairchild Semiconductor. These 8 people became known as the Traitorous 8, but the Traitorous 8 were far from ordinary researchers. This group included Gordon Moore, Sheldon Roberts, Eugene Kleiner, Robert Noyce, Victor Greenwich, Julius Blank, Jean Hoemi, and Jay Last. They all became co-founders of a new company called Fairchild Semiconductor. I'll just mention 3 of these people. Robert Noyce was the inventor of the integrated circuit, and in 1968, in addition to Fairchild Semiconductor, he went on to become one of the co-founders of Intel. Gordon Moore went on to develop a little something called Moore's Law, and he joined Robert Noyce as a co-founder of Intel. And Eugene Kleiner became one of the original founders of Kleiner Perkins, a pedigree venture capital firm in the San Francisco Bay Area. Over the next 3 decades, virtually every startup in the greater San Francisco Bay Area had ties to Fairchild Semiconductor, and these startup companies later became known as the Fair Children. This is the rarely told story about how Silicon Valley got started. So naturally, it caught my attention when in October 2013, Dr. Janusz Bryzek, a vice president of Fairchild Semiconductor, announced he had hosted the first ever Trillion Sensor Summit at Stanford University, an event designed around creating a roadmap for achieving the world's first trillion sensors. The 250 attendees, representing 100 companies in 40 different countries, were focused primarily on the market for ultra-high volume sensors, the ones in highest demand that could be efficiently produced. They concluded we will reach the first trillion sensors in the world in 2023, and by 2036 we'll reach the first 100 trillion sensors. This means that sensors are becoming increasingly ubiquitous and far easier to mass produce. This growing volume of sensors has paved the way for countless new data-driven industries, including digital twins, the Internet of Things, and our emerging Metaverse. A digital twin is a virtual representation of a real-life physical product, building, or person. It can be the digital representation of a chair, a desk, office building, famous landmark, or your next-door neighbor. Any entity that exists in the physical world can be replicated with a digital twin. For anyone managing a business, digital twins can offer unique insights into how products and processes are operating in real time, even from a remote location. The initial spark for digital twin development was at NASA when its crisis team used mirroring systems to identify the cascading sequence of unanticipated problems and rescue the Apollo 13 astronauts from a catastrophic series of failures. While digital twins started as a way to model physical devices and structures, it has evolved into an invaluable tool encompassing biological systems, where it has been demonstrated to shorten design times, reduce costs, and increase safety. So whether it's a digital twin of a tractor, a cruise ship, or a turbine at a power plant, we will be able to monitor how the equipment is performing from a long ways away. As the technology improves, we will not only be able to monitor the equipment from a long ways away, we'll also be able to operate it remotely. This is known as remote robotics. The DaVinci surgical robot is a good example. Doctors can perform surgeries from the other side of the planet. John Deere recently introduced a driverless tractor that can remotely operate in the fields. This raises some interesting questions. How much longer will we need pilots inside of aircraft, and can they operate the aircraft remotely? How long before digital twin technology is common in humans, and how long before doctors can monitor somebody's health remotely through their digital twin? While many people think of the metaverse as some version of the dystopian movie Ready Player One, the bulk of the metaverse will have far more utilitarian value, and it will be entering our future with or without our permission. We've taken far too many steps in this direction to stop it. In addition to sports and entertainment, there will be few, if any, aspects of society, including government, business, churches, education, healthcare, banking, dating, transportation, manufacturing, politics, and even war, that will remain unchanged with the evolving metaverse. It will have an especially profound effect on the way we educate ourselves and our children in the years ahead. We are on the verge of a micro-industry revolution being driven by the endless troves of data and the AI bots that will assist us in these decisions we make. At the same time, we need to keep this race for next-generation technology in perspective. The cars that we drive today have been in development for the past 120 years. And for the past 120 years, cars have been designed around one central function, which is driving. Yet as we move into the driverless era, people will no longer drive. For the people who have been designing cars, the entire body of knowledge that has been developed around the human relationship with the dashboard, the steering wheel, and the pedals on the floor, all of that information goes out the window as designers focus on all the other activities that happen in a car other than driving. It's at this point where people will begin asking, is this the same job? They're still designing cars, but is it the same job? We're going to be hearing this question a lot over the coming years as AI, robots, and the metaverse enter our lives and automate routine tasks out of existence. This is especially true when we look at all the transitions we'll be going through with cryptocurrencies. In many ways, the emergence of Web 3.0 and the metaverse is an evolution of cryptocurrency that began with the introduction of Bitcoin in 2009. According to Economics 101, a currency must serve two functions: to store value and serve as a medium of exchange. With cryptocurrencies' track record, it's proven itself as a store of value. Granted, cryptocurrency's value can fluctuate dramatically based on a number of factors, but anyone can buy, hold, and sell cryptocurrency. It has a well-established way of determining market-based value. While using cryptocurrencies as a medium of exchange has been slower to develop, more and more companies are now accepting cryptocurrencies for purchases in financial transactions. I see DeFi, which stands for decentralized finance, and BlockFi, which pertains to financial transactions that are based on blockchain, as the mainstreaming of cryptocurrency transactions. Average people don't have to understand things like cryptocurrency mining or blockchain ledgers to participate. There are 5 central features that set cryptocurrencies apart from national currencies. They are open, borderless, decentralized, neutral, and censorship resistant. It is these features that give cryptocurrencies long-term viability. Here's how I see the relationship between consumers, blockchain, cryptocurrency, and financial institutions like banks play out over the next few years. Number 1, within 3 to 5 years, most major retailers like Amazon, Walmart, Home Depot, and Costco would begin accepting cryptocurrencies as payments. Number 2, within 3 to 5 years, banks will begin to offer a number of cryptocurrency services, including exchanges, savings accounts, payment accounts, crypto transfers, and more. Number 3, by 2030, major credit cards like Visa and MasterCard will fully support and back multiple cryptocurrencies. Number 4, by 2030, most banks will be working with both national currencies and cryptocurrencies. Number 5, by 2030, blockchain credit bureaus for cryptocurrencies will overtake traditional credit bureaus, which will eventually go out of business. Number 6, by 2030, most banks will offer cryptocurrency loans for houses, cars, etc. Number 7, by 2030, the majority of all loans worldwide will use blockchain technology to secure the transaction. And number 8, by 2035, banks will earn the majority of their income from cryptocurrency services. Going beyond cryptocurrencies, another early adopter of the metaverse will be smart cities. If we think of cities as living, breathing organisms where every facet of the city is expanding, contracting, flowing, trickling, inputting, outputting, and inhaling, exhaling, we begin to understand the dynamic nature of this kind of community. As we overlay the metaverse onto smart cities, we begin to see how the capabilities grow through an entirely new lens. There are lots of attributes that will add to our wish list for smart cities of the future, but first and foremost, they will need to be aware. They'll need to be aware of everything happening inside their borders. Awareness breeds responsibility and sets the stage for what comes next. Smart cities will simultaneously aspire to be easy to live in, easy to work in, easy to travel in, and create easy ways to meet and connect with others. At the same time, we'll judge them by their liveliness, enthusiasm, vibrancy, spontaneity, impulsiveness, and their overarching aptitude for serendipity. And this is where the metaverse and the physical world collide. While we may wish to have our minds and perhaps our jobs in the metaverse, we will still be living in the physical world. So not only will smart cities need to offer great food and abundant forms of entertainment, we will also want them to feel safe and free from criminal activity. This is precisely where digital twins enter the picture and become the bridge between our analog existence and the digital world. Very soon, digital twins of cities in the metaverse will become treasure troves of data as the daily inflow and outflow of people, traffic, and weather becomes far better understood. This form of digital modeling will also give rise to search engines for the physical world. Online search technology has framed much of our thinking around our ability to find things. In general, if it's not digital and online, it's not findable. In the future, drones with sensors will scan our cities and replace much of the work of today's web crawlers when it comes to defining our searchable universe. Search technology will become far more sophisticated in the future. Soon we'll be able to search on attributes like smells, taste, harmonic vibration, textures, specific gravity, levels of reflectivity, and barometric pressure. Our next generation sensor technology will make all of this possible. Over time, search engines will have the capability of finding virtually anything in either the digital or physical world. Let's take, for example, smart air monitoring systems. They can do full-spectrum air monitoring to detect new forms of pollution, disease, toxic chemicals, insects, and other airborne issues. They can also determine if telecom signals are reaching dangerous levels. What are the most dangerous allergens currently floating in the air, and when do they pose a serious issue? How have oxygen and CO2 levels changed? What are the sources of specific kinds of air pollution? If we start monitoring smart playgrounds, we can monitor possible surface contaminations, scan for the presence of animal feces, insects, snakes, and rodents. They can send alerts for emergency situation, injuries, child abandonment, etc. Are surface temperatures too hot or too cold? Has there been any signs of vandalism? Are the restrooms in safe and working order? When it comes to things like smart transportation networks, we can continuously check for animals, birds, and other irregular objects that may interfere with the flow of traffic. They can automatically reroute traffic around problem areas. They can spot where traffic bottlenecks are and why. If we think about monitoring bird flow, is the overall bird population going up or going down? Are they flying higher or lower? How many migratory patterns have changed? How has the mix of bird species changed? What abnormalities are showing up and why? What is the overarching reason for these changes? When we get into smart delivery networks, the primary objective for smart delivery networks will be to automatically find the fastest delivery route. Are there any dogs, trees, steps, or potholes that will interfere with the delivery? Have there been any people or kids messing with deliveries in the area? How have delivery times changed over the past week, month, year? How long do packages typically remain outside before they're taken inside? When it comes to smart policing, fire protection, and emergency rescue, whenever an emergency call comes in, first responders will activate their fleet of drones to get eyes on it. When somebody hits the emergency button in an autonomous vehicle, EMTs will quickly respond. When it comes to smart streetlights will use a variety of sensors to monitor light, heat, wind, and sound, moisture, and so much more. They will automatically change color spectrum to help people in rain, fog, full moon, etc. Auto dimming will be used to let neighborhoods go to sleep. When it comes to mosquito tracking, is the overall mosquito population going up or down? How effective have recent efforts been to control mosquitoes? What new species are showing up and why? What is the primary breeding source, and how has that changed from year to year? When we think about noise monitoring, our world is filled with various distinct sounds, and things like gunshots, screams, collapsing structures, and rushing water should all prompt further investigation. Also, pinpointing the source of noise violations. How has the mix of electric versus gas-powered vehicles changed over the years? Does the howling of wolves, coyotes, and other predatory animals mean that more have moved into the area? Should neighborhoods be notified? If we think about sewer analysis, we'll need to analyze sewer samples for abnormalities in color, consistency, volume, and frequency. How have people's diets changed? What new pharmaceuticals are showing up in the sewer system? Are there any traces of parasites, infectious disease, blood, sugar, or illegal narcotics? Are there other biomarkers present showing signs of possible sewer contamination? How has the volume of waste changed seasonally and annually? If we think about landfill trackers, how has the volume of waste entering the landfill changed over time? How has the mix between biodegradable versus non-biodegradable trash changed? What toxic materials are ending up in the landfills, and what are their sources? Are there any signs of chronic conditions like cancer, diabetes, or even highly contagious diseases like Ebola? Our idea of what a smart city is today will undoubtedly morph and shift over the coming decades. To be sure, data privacy will be an ongoing issue. Smart cities are essentially radiating information, and it is up to us to determine the best ways to protect residents when the probing and analysis becomes too intrusive. As humans, we are obsessed with trying new things, pushing the boundaries, and testing our limits just to make a difference. In the end, every capability our smart cities have will come down to our own human-centered value system and how it will prepare us for a better future ahead. As the world is heading towards a far more AI-integrated metaverse, I would like to share some thoughts on how we'll go about training and incentivizing our next-generation AI engineers. A recent column in Nikkei Asia projected that Japan will need an additional 270,000 AI engineers by 2030. The global need for AI engineers will likely be 10 times that amount, upwards of 3 million of these highly sought-after technical professionals. For most people, AI is the magical genie in some invisible box that is redefining a new state of normal on a daily basis. AI is not something that you can touch, feel, taste, swallow, or toss back and forth like a ball. Not yet anyway, but soon it will become part of each of these activities. The change will be so gradual, it'll be hard to notice until one day we won't know how to live without it. Change is our only constant. As the rapid onset of AI scales up, each new generation of people will participate in far more unique experiences than ever before. As bystanders, we are on the edge of a technological revolution with such magnitude that we can't even begin to comprehend it. Bit by bit, we are witnessing these confusing shifts happening right under our noses, and as we were forced to contend with one new reality after another. One of the most important advances yet to come with AI will be advances in our conversational interface. We're way past the early days of voice recognition for AI, and we're now focused on a conversational interface that has the ability to emulate a typical conversation we might have with a real person. Rather than using keyboards and computer displays, our voice and its inflections will become our primary tool we use to interact with the AI-driven world around us. As a first step, we'll need to build the brains of the robot. Let me explain what I mean by that. Every time we talk to Alexa, Siri, Google, or Cortana, we are building the brains of the robot. Whenever we speak to these devices, we are imparting tiny pieces of human intelligence. Over time, with the right kind of neural networks, it will be possible to build the kind of foundational base of knowledge needed to operate our robots in the future. Granted, we are still in the primitive chiseling the stone phase of this transformation, but our verbal exchanges are fueling the early reservoirs of human intelligence that will be needed to power the brains of the robot over the coming decades. To put this in perspective, the robots I'm referring to may be autonomous drones, driverless cars, or actual robots, but this kind of incoming stream of intelligence is what will be needed to separate the blind order-following robots of the past from the emotionally perceptive, multisensory bots that will be common in our future. In most situations, the robot itself will be one of many kinds of devices powered by different forms of AI-driven automation that we simply sync up with our network. Much like plumbing a house 100 years ago, we'll simply be able to wirelessly tap into hot and cold running AI to drive our devices. The human race has an unwritten mandate to pass our rapidly growing base of knowledge and information on from one generation to the next. However, the tools we have today are not up to the task. In their present form, libraries are not good enough, schools are not fast enough, and technology still has a poor interface for the human mind. But changes are happening very quickly. For all of our children, it's imperative that we understand what kind of world they will inherit. If we understand the world they're entering into, we can better prepare them with the skills they'll need for the future. Young people today will be our future designers, craftsmen, engineers, architects, doctors, dentists, scientists, researchers, politicians, lawmakers, retailers, and future business leaders. They will be inheriting a world that is filled with problems, aging infrastructure, crumbling systems, corrupt governments, radical disruptive technologies, and ethical dilemmas, and a host of seemingly impossible situations. At the same time, they'll be using tools, systems, and technical devices that will enable them to be exponentially more capable, productive, and accomplished. In 2012, I was asked to speak at a TEDx event in Istanbul on the future of education. Several times throughout my talk, I touched on the topic of teacherless education. After my presentation, I was approached by an executive at Google who explained why teacherless education was so important to their company. He said, "Our team at Google is looking for ways to educate the people in Africa, but very few teachers actually want to move to Africa." The conversation was brief, but he framed the problem very succinctly. No, most teachers don't want to move to Africa. They also don't want to move to Siberia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Alaska, or the Amazon rainforest. There are lots of places teachers don't want to move to. By some counts, we are short 69 million teachers globally, and a full 23% of kids growing up today don't attend any school whatsoever. There simply aren't enough teachers at the right time and place to satisfy our growing thirst for knowledge. In fact, if we continue to insert a teacher between us and everything we need to learn, we can't possibly keep up with the demands of the future. Let me say this again. If we continue to insert a teacher between us and everything we need to learn, we can't possibly keep up with the demands of the future. Many of today's most valuable skills will be replaced with new ones. We can only begin to understand these new skills by improving our foresight, visioning, and future forecasting abilities today. Our education systems today have been built around just-in-case learning, which ends up being a very poor fit for our just-in-time business world. Very little of what we learn in college ever gets put to use in today's business world. For this reason, we are seeing alternative forms of credentialing taking center stage. Certifications, as example, are now competing directly with college degrees. Since they are faster, cheaper, and have the potential to lead to far higher paying jobs, they are making serious inroads. Education is now on the verge of a major transformation, and artificial intelligence-based teacherless education systems are quickly taking center stage. This doesn't mean that teachers go away, it just means that they take on more of a coaching role to interact with the students. Very soon, pregnant women will have the option to go to a geneticist to discuss certain enhancement options for their unborn child. Designer babies will not only give them the hair color, lip shape, lash length, and ear shape that they've requested, but also bigger, stronger, more durable humans, intensely bright, physically efficient, with greater life expectancy, super resilient, super confident, and just plain super. CRISPR has opened the door to a vast new world of possibilities of re-engineering humanity one gene at a time. CRISPR will not be the only tool in play, but it will be the trigger for far more research. Once super children enter our schools, we will struggle with ways to super educate the super mind. But super babies will not always be super. They will have little patience for those who can't keep up with them and quickly relegate slow thinkers to a lower status. If you can imagine a 12-year-old kid fluent in 27 languages who completed the equivalent of 7 PhDs and is capable of doing mental dictations while simultaneously coding algorithms for a video game, reading a book, watching television, and riding bicycle all at the same time, you begin to understand the challenges ahead. How will parents deal with super tantrums or no-sleep babies? How will sports leagues deal with 5-year-olds who are capable of tackling teenagers in football or shooting perfect half-court shots in basketball or kicking a soccer ball the entire length of the field? And how will parents of super teenagers going through super puberty with raging hormones deal with 12-year-olds wanting to date other super teenagers? And I'm just scratching the surface here. What is the lifetime value of a superhuman? Few people truly understand how powerful this question is. While we still don't know how to quantify a superhuman or the incremental advances that will separate a stage 1 superhuman from stage 2, 3, or 4, the idea of giving birth to a superhuman is both intriguing and scary all at the same time. How will a superhuman be a better entertainer, athlete, business executive, designer, or engineer? How will they be better parents for their children, better leaders for our countries, or better role models for future generations? The reason I'm asking about the lifetime value of superhumans is that it changes how we think about human life and how we make the transition from the here and now to what comes next. The lifetime value of superhumans may indeed be 100 times greater than the average person today. One superhuman on average may add as much as $1 billion to the global economy, and yet economic value is a terrible metric for quantifying the value of a person. In some of the early phases, research groups will likely pay young mothers to have their babies genetically enhanced. In fact, they may even pay them to spend their entire pregnancy at a luxury resort, plus a salary, plus a bonus once the baby is born, just so that they can monitor the entire fetal development. Young women today who may fret over the looming burden and responsibility that comes with a young child may see it as the single greatest turning point in their life. One super baby pregnancy could lead to a stable home, guaranteed income, and complete support staff to ensure the best possible outcome. If this proves successful, countries around the world will likely start paying moms to have super babies, as countries compete with other countries to have the most super babies. The return on investment will simply be too compelling to overlook. Perhaps your gut reaction is that this won't be allowed or that civilized countries will somehow outlaw it. Yes, that may happen, but many countries will embrace it, and these countries will have such a distinct advantage on the world stage that the ones that outlaw it will have to quickly change their mind or be left behind. Once super children enter our schools, we will struggle with ways to super educate the super mind. We will need to invent new ways to engage super kids both physically and mentally. How many Einsteins and Mozarts are born in every million people? Can there be more, and should there be more? As we dip our toes into the world of AI teacher bots, we will find lofty goals and unrealistically high expectations for first-generation teacher coaches and the bots they work with. Some will perform badly and make us want to throw in the towel before we ever get started with them. But teacher bots will improve quickly. Because of their ability to rapidly iterate, teacher bots will undergo the equivalent of 100 years of improvement in perhaps 1 to 2 years. If we apply AI to teacher bots, the new game will be to find the fastest way to teach students. AIs will be used to reverse engineer the skill set of every profession, mapping out every unique competency in a way so it can be replicated one experience module at a time. Proficiency comes from doing, and every accomplishment will be assessed in terms of things like technical prowess, adaptability, know-how, and artistry to ensure the true mastery of the skill. Over time, using a conversational interface, AIs will learn every student's interests, their proclivities, idiosyncrasies, preferred tools, personal reference points, and how to keep them engaged in learning even in the face of distractions. AIs will quickly learn what skills you're proficient in, what skills you're deficient in, what's needed to bring you up to speed, and how and when to schedule your next training, and when you've mastered the topic. Throughout this training curve, individual learning will begin to scale far faster than anything we've ever dreamed possible, 4, 6, and perhaps even 10 times faster than anything today. Completing the equivalent of a 4-year college degree in 1 to 2 months is entirely possible with this form of AI learning. As always, the advantage will go to those who are most prepared for jobs that currently don't exist, using technology that hasn't been invented yet, to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. The future is ours to create. This is why I'm convinced that by 2030, the largest tech company on the planet will be an education-based company that the world hasn't heard of yet. It remains the single largest opportunity in the online world that no one has cracked the code for. As we think through our next generation AI society, we will need to raise the bar for our accomplishments. It's important to consider the dishwasher analogy. While dishwashers do offer significant efficiencies, their role in the average household is quite different than what was originally intended. In addition to washing dishes, they provide out-of-sight staging area for dirty dishes and a higher bar for all-around kitchen cleanliness. AI will be similar because it will change the way we think about work. With AI, rather than witnessing a mass elimination of jobs, the fear that so many people have, we will likely see a higher bar for the work being done. For some work, it will be a more thorough analysis, or more control, or more certainty in the way jobs are done. AI will hold us all to a higher standard. As we dip our toes into the world of AI teacher bots, we will find lofty goals and unrealistically high expectation for first-generation teacher coaches in the bots they work with. Some will perform badly and make us want to throw in the towel before we ever get started with them. But teacher bots will improve quickly. Because of their ability to rapidly iterate, teacher bots will undergo the equivalent of 100 years of improvement in perhaps 1 to 2 years. At the same time, we'll begin to realize all of the areas that AI will need to improve upon. Here are some of the multi-dimensional traits these bots will need to develop. Keep in mind that each of the 4 bots I talk about here will need to be incorporated into the same device. Number 1, the AI Buddy Bot. The Buddy Bot will develop a personal relationship with every student, responding appropriately to positive exchanges filled with jokes, happiness, and moments of excitement, as well as negative exchanges filled with anger, racial slurs, slander, prejudice, trash talk, and hurtful comments. Over time, the AI Buddy Bot will become your personal buddy, your best friend, that person that you can tell your most intimate secrets to, confide in, and share your hopes and dreams. It will become your personal therapist, your cheerleader, your protector, the guardian of your privacy, the conversational coach, often finishing your sentences with words you're struggling to speak. It will know you intimately from your deepest flaws to your greatest successes and everything in between. It will simultaneously become the friend you always wish you had, the source of unlimited ideas and new possibilities, and your single most valuable possession. Number 2, the AI Assessment Bot. This same bot will be able to assess what skills and abilities you are proficient in, what skills you're deficient in, and determine what it will take to bring you up to speed. Over time, it will begin to know where your passions lie, what topics you're most interested in, what your objectives are, and what success looks like in your mind. The assessment bot will also know when you've completed a learning experience, such as reading a book or watching a movie, and be able to assess how much was learned and be authorized to award microcredits to your learning profile. Number 3, AI Coach Bot. As humans, we find ourselves constantly swimming in an ocean of uncertainty. We often need help and typically have no good place to go to find it. The AI Coach Bot will be designed to first understand our dilemma, help clarify our goals, suggest ways for us to make good decisions, step us through the options, and support our decisions. Number 4, the AI Teacher Bot. Whenever there is a skill deficiency or an unmet curiosity, the teacher bot will step in to suggest possible solutions. The solutions will invariably be a mashup of courses, videos, books, training packages, visualizations, and more. Teacher bots will know how and when to schedule the training, what prerequisites are needed, what material is sinking in and what isn't, and when we've met our objectives. Yet even with AI bots handling most of the load, there will be skills that are difficult to automate. To illustrate this, a couple years ago, my wife Deb and I were eating at a local sushi restaurant, watching the atame, which is the sushi chef, carefully preparing each meal. In Japan, becoming an atame of sushi requires years of on-the-job training and apprenticeship. For this reason, I asked Deb if she would prefer eating sushi that was prepared by humans or the same kind of meals prepared by machines. After thinking about it for a bit, she said that she'd prefer having a human chef because she liked the inconsistencies that goes along with having a person at the cutting board. For her, machines meant perfect consistency and perfectly prepared meals, and that was less appealing than a human-centric operation with randomness added into the equation. The key point here is that when it comes to automation, the marketplace will decide, and the marketplace is not always logical. We still go to concerts, even though listening to pre-recorded music at home is safer, more comfortable, and oftentimes better quality. We still go to museums, even though we can witness most of the images online without having to wait in lines and fight the crowds. We still go to coffee shops, even though we can brew the same kind of coffee at home for far less money. In each of these cases, the value of the experience far outweighs the incongruity of our decisions being made. Simply put, we live in a human-based economy, and humans are not always logical. This brings us to the irrationality of being human. Will a robot smile ever be as comforting as a mother's smile? If a robot tells you that you're beautiful, will that ever mean as much as when your boyfriend or girlfriend says it? It's easy to start listening to all of the so-called inferior traits that people have. Robots don't sweat. They don't complain. They don't have to urinate, take breaks, get angry, or make mistakes. We generally don't design machines to be cruel, insulting, lazy, vindictive, violent, irrational, clumsy, greedy, envious, hot-headed, power-hungry, selfish, shy, tactless, or superficial or stupid. However, humans come with a number of positive characteristics to offset the negative ones. We can also be friendly, helpful, charming, warm-hearted, risk-taking, courageous, empathetic, inspiring, bold, brilliant, resourceful, benevolent, gracious, humble, and forgiving. When it comes to designing machines to replace humans, we often forget how enormously complex we are. We have a need to compete, a need to belong, a sense of purpose. We crave attention, love, importance, and the human touch. We must never underestimate the power of the human touch. This brings up some interesting questions. Will we buy music that's generated by machines or music produced by humans? Will we buy machine-made art, watch a robo-ballet, attend a car race with only driverless cars, or sit in a stadium to watch robot athletes? In virtually all of these cases, we will choose to do both. Certainly, we will mostly choose one over the other, but we'll buy human art along with robo-art. We'll also attend a human-run restaurant one day and a robo-restaurant the next. We'll cheer on our favorite human team with one set of friends and cheer on our favorite robo-athletes with another. We'll also love some robots and hate others. We don't live in an either-or world. Rather, our human culture has grown up around a more inclusive both-and economy. Yes, these new options will compete with each other, causing fewer restaurant workers per restaurant and fewer artists and musicians to fill today's demands. However, as demand increases, we may actually see more people working in each of these fields. Our struggle will be to find the optimal balance. The best restaurant owners will use robots to gain efficiency. The best artists will use robots to produce far more art. And the best musicians and athletes will play with robots instead of playing against them. We're entering a world that will require higher caliber people to make it work, and it is ridiculous of us to think that our existing systems can suddenly start producing better results. Each of us has only one body, one mind, and one life, and whatever we do to increase our skills and capabilities will make each of us more valuable on the world stage. With the help of AI, people in the future will view themselves as being in a constant state of improvement. This means that over the coming decades, we will become exponentially more fixable, trainable, repairable, improvable, and even reinventable. It will no longer be about who we are today, but who we have the potential to become. And tomorrow's AI engineers will take on one of the world's most important missions, which is to make that happen. When it comes to the future, we have met the enemy, and it is us. Ironically, we need to step aside so AI automation and the metaverse can help us unlock the person we were truly meant to become. We are entering a period of unprecedented opportunity. Why is this period so important? Humanity will change more in the next 20 years than in all human history. At the same time, risk factors will increase exponentially, and our children's children, who haven't even been born yet, are depending on you. They're depending on the people listening to this video. As Steve Jobs says, right now is one of those moments when you are influencing the future. But sometimes our best efforts look just like this. For those of you who are interested in my latest book, Epiphany Z, it's available both in print and on Audible. You can listen to our Futurati podcast at futuratipodcast.com. And for more information, you can sign up for our free Future Trends newsletter at futuristspeaker.com. It has been an honor to be with you here today. Thank you.